Context. Initially, when my channel hit 500 subscribers, I wanted to begin a series in which I sculpted almost every month something large scale, preferably a mech or a monster, because I enjoy putting details into larger scale projects. And seeing as I had recently rewatched Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is a great anime by the way, watch it if you can, it's monsters fighting more monsters with a dose of depression. I decided to sculpt Unit 1 because purple is one of my favorite colors and I like the mech design. Seriously, it's really cool. I like the horn and all that. Now, instead of creating a battle damaged, bandaged out or bloodied version, I went for a more clean version. But I did do some weathering around the whole sculpture once it was complete to give it a worn out look. And then I decided to make the rebuild version instead of the original version because it's cooler. Now the materials I used include Fevicryl molded for the sculpting, thick wires for the skeleton, some sticks for support, sticky notes which will come into sense later, and some doctor's tape or paper tape. Now I used some wires to construct a basic bust skeleton onto which I used the molded to sculpt the face on. I began with the lower face and then moved on to the upper face, or the helmet to be more specific. Once I was satisfied with this, I moved on to creating the whole skeleton for the sculpture, which it took me about 4 to 5 wires to create. It depends on how much height you give it. And then finally I bulked it up using some sticky notes and tape. Look, that's where the sticky notes come into play. I use those to bulk it up so that I use less molded and there is a better balance of weight throughout the whole sculpture and it doesn't feel like a lifting weight. Then I used the molded to create a basic layer around the whole torso so that I had a better base for sculpting, and this is what I had. There was a little bit of sculpting left on the back when I was recording, but then I began with the lower torso once the whole thing was dry. The lower torso was one of the most interesting parts to sculpt because it has really intricate shapes which I like. Then you have the upper torso onto which I sculpted the throat, armor bits and the chest armor plates, which again were really fun and something different as compared to what I usually do. Then I used the sticks as support for the legs and stuck those on. After which I used the sticky notes and paper tape again to bulk the legs up, creating very basic shapes and forms for the thighs, the calves and the lower legs. These helped me to balance the whole thing out. Now, the sculpting, a little bit of thing happened with the arms. I didn't plan them out properly, so there was some inconsistencies here and there, but they're not much. The arms, I had sculpted them on with the wires which were attaching them to the body, but because they were too heavy I had to cut them off and reattach them later with some Fevikwik, molded and tape. You can see the tape part happening on the left arm where I had used the tape as scaffolding to keep the arm on. As for the base, I did some really basic sketches for the base which I was going to make, and then finally settled on a hexagonal base with a shape which was very common to its shoulder, or the shoulder symbol it had. It will make sense when I've done with the painting, but it was really rough. Then I also sculpted on some shoulder pylons onto the unit and also made the gun for the hand alongside the hand itself for the right arm. Here's the unit with the half shoulder pylons, and here are the tops of the shoulder pylons I had made. These I stuck on later with some molded. And here it is. Once the whole sticking part was done, I was pretty satisfied. And then it was time for the painting, which is one thing I hadn't really planned out. So my basic instinct was to use dark purple as a base and then add lighter shades of purple onto it. If you don't get what I mean, here we go. Now, like I said, I used dark purple to cover majority of the purple parts of the entire figure and then used a mix of mauve lightish purple to cover the armored parts or the more noticeable parts to create this depth and definition between armor plates and whatnot. After this, I went on to do the black portions of the sculpture, and this was really fun. Doing the blacks is always a fun thing to do, especially when sculpting larger models with this much detail. Some parts were a little hard to reach, but I had a thinner brush to go there. Then I did the grey as well as orange highlights, which are some minor colors which come here and there. And then after this, I went on to the green or the neon green, which really pops onto that dull or depressing purple background alongside that black. The green is something which I really like about this figure, and it really makes it stand out on my shelf. After that, I went on to do the reds and a little bit of shading here and there and some dry brushing, after which I finally coated it with a whole 2 layers of varnish. Here is the base I was talking about. It's completely painted and varnished. I did this off camera alongside the gun of the figure which I'm making, and here it is, the whole figure completely painted, varnished, and this took me about 2 weeks. I mean, I did take 3 days off because I was tired and all that. That's it for about this video. I am really happy that we were able to reach this subscriber goal. I might do a sculpture next month also, but till then, see you later.